This is Justin Case of America Newscape, honored to be joined by Laura Caler during this Teachers Appreciation Week, sharing a few perspectives. Hello, Laura. Welcome to America Newscape.
Hi, thank you.
Okay, Laura, what's happening in rural Odessa, Washington?
It's the weather's great. It's pretty sunny. We're just about ready to wrap up the school year. I plan on going golfing after school. It's one of our big things to do in the summertime. So, not a whole lot.
Not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. Well, Odessa is I assume Odessa is a very tight knit community, and I think
Great.
there's a lot of good aspects about it. And you talk about livestock, all kinds of cool things.
The deer that use the school crosswalk, it's nice that they abide by the law when
I
they're
know.
going to eat your garden.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they have tulips to eat. Tulips are important.
Yes,
Okay. Okay.
yeah. I
Okay.
don't have because they've eaten them all. So,
But they would love you more. Okay, Laura, let's get this started.
okay.
Why? Why did you choose the path of becoming a teacher, and what inspires you about it?
Well, it was a combination of things. When I graduated from high school, I went right to work. I went right into the work field. And then I got tired of that because it didn't pay enough, obviously, because you need an education of some sort to make any money, whether it's, a trade or a degree. So I actually started going back to school. But before that, I was teaching Sunday school at my
Cool.
church. Yeah. And I loved it. I loved it. So that's when I decided to become a teacher. And I thought that I would become a secondary teacher because I was one of the advisors for our youth group at the time, and I loved teenagers. They're hilarious. They're
Teenagers
so
are,
fun.
they are funny.
Oh my gosh, they're the best. So they're so bad, but they're
Pe-
so funny.
People, you heard it here first. Teenagers are the best.
I love them. I don't know how elementary school teachers do it. They kindergarten teachers, oh my gosh, they deserve all the praise of everything. So, and then I was going to be a health teacher. Don't laugh. I love
Oh.
food now, but I was really into exercising, and I've always been interested in the body. So, and how it works. And then I had my first year of college, I had my first college English class, and I loved it. I've always loved to read, but Mr. Burns was my college teacher, and I just really enjoyed it. And then as I moved through my career, my college career, and I graduated, but I did my student teaching with a teacher named Jackie Lake. She was everything I wanted to be in a teacher as a teacher. She's fantastic. She retired, but she gave me so much hope and inspiration as to what I could do. Even when I struggled, I would still reach out to her, and I remember one time the best advice I ever got. She said, Laura, you can do anything for a year. I was having a really hard time at a job once, and she said, Laura, you can do anything for a year. And I've always held on to that whenever I have a rough year, whether it's no matter what it is, I just say, you can do anything for a year.
Isn't that every teacher's credo?
Yeah, do anything for a year.
And let me just interject here. People that I met Laura back in 2010. Laura is a remarkable writer, and I
Thank you.
I don't know if I'll live long enough to see it, but there'll come a time in her life where she'll be able to sit down and write a novel, and I promise people that novel will be worth reading.
I mean, I have an idea for one, and I always tell my students, and they're like, "You should do that, Miss Kaler." And I'm like, "Oh, well, when am I going to find time?" And they're like, "The summer." And I go, "Oh, that's wine time.
Yeah.
That's why I drink wine and play golf, guys. Come on."
Well, maybe that'll be
I
your
know.
novel,
Maybe when I retire.
the Wino's Guide to Golf.
Don't act like that's not. I could write that book.
It's
That's great.
I digress, but the teachers that I've invited were the teachers that I envisioned were loved by their students. because that's what a teacher is. A teacher inspires. And even if any teacher that's going through a year that doesn't, if they're a real educator, if they're a real teacher, not a pretender, their students will, if they don't love them today, 20 years from now, they'll look back and appreciate and love them for the advocacy. And that's what a teacher is to me. You know, they advocate for us. And as a student, and it's a remarkable profession that I don't believe most people could do. And the fact that you can do this and state that you love teenagers is just unbelievable to me.
Well, they're awesome. They really. I know when I taught once at a school, and my students have always liked me, but that's because I like them. And an older teacher didn't care for my approach and told me that my students didn't respect me because they liked me. That he would rather have his students respect him than like him. And I just said, they will never respect you if they don't like you.
Well,
They'll
I told,
fear you. They'll fear you. And I don't want my students to be scared of me. Don't tell anybody that. Shh. Those eighth
no.
graders coming up, a little bit of fear is good. But honestly, after the first day they have me, they're like, oh, she's not that bad. And I teach 8 through 12. So I get them as eighth graders, and then I have them all the way till they're seniors. And the upperclassmen always tell the upcoming, oh, she's so scary. It's so, and
Well, yeah, exactly.
it's like, that's our secret.
That's, you know, I was a coach of tournament baseball players that were aged 13 to 15. And that is you know, that is an impressionable age for them, and they're going through hormonal changes. And that's what the older kids that were in high school always told the younger ones, that I was some sort of psychotic monster that had just crawled out of the blue lagoon. But and I totally agree with you. You know, if you don't love those kids, if you don't respect those teenagers, they won't respect you.
Exactly.
And it's a camaraderie. I mean, you want them to succeed. You probably want them to succeed much more than some of them even want to succeed themselves. And
Oh, yeah,
you take ownership of that success.
absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, my college composition teacher in high school, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, you know, when I was had him as a teacher, I thought he was a Nazi, you know. He was probably one of the toughest graders, one of the most insulting teachers I ever had. But as I look back on it now, he gave the most honest grades, and he probably did more for me in shaping me going forward. And I wish if he were still on this side of the grass, I would tell him that. So I've learned to respect and love him for an educator, because he was a remarkable educator. But I wasn't mature enough at that time to recognize that.
Yeah. And I think that teachers, because like you said before, it's not a job everyone can do. And that's probably true of every career. But I do believe that teaching is a calling.
Yes.
And my master teacher also said to me, there is an art and a science to teaching. And she said, anybody can do the science. That's the content, like what you teach, the degree. The art cannot be taught. You either have it or you don't. So I think some of the teachers who struggle are the ones who got into it for whatever reason, and they don't have the art. You need to be able to make those connections with kids. And I never understand teachers who don't like kids. Like, what are you doing?
Well,
You know, or
they're
why,
pretenders.
yeah, why would you do that? I mean, I will never complain about what I make, because I think, and I'll get hard and feathered for this, I think our district does a really good job of paying us and is in benefits and stuff. I'm never going to complain, but that's because I know what it's like not to have money.
Right.
And I mean, in any other field, the amount of experience and my degrees and what education, yeah, I get paid a lot more, but you don't go into teaching for the money. But
No.
but don't get me wrong, I don't like that when people say teachers don't go in it for the income, they go in it for the outcome. I mean, you can't feed your family on an outcome. You need to feed your family on an income. So yeah, we go in for an income because we need the money and the benefits, just like anybody. But it's nice to for that little benefit though of watching our students grow and become adults.
Well,
So,
yeah. It it's remarkable, and the calling is it's what it's all about. I mean, if you bring that calling, you will. There are so few jobs where you go to work and you can come home at night and lay down before you go to sleep and think about, I really accomplished something. And I think that's a beautiful gift that real teachers are given. But the curse in that is most real teachers go to bed worrying about their students, and they wake up in the morning worrying about their students.
yeah, I try to, I'm really thirsty. I'm going to get a drink.
Okay.
It's not vodka. It's just water, I promise.
It's not wine. Okay.
It's not wine. Not yet. It's not 3:30. Um, so in the morning, I lay in bed, and most people know that, I love me some Jesus. I love God. And I will actually just try to pray for my students before I get out of bed if I'm not too tired, because sometimes I start to pray and fall back asleep. So I have to be careful. But I do. I try to pray for them. And then if there's a specific kid that I know is struggling, I just pray for that kid because that's all I can do. I mean, there's always food in my classroom. There's always a safe place for them to go. I open my classroom door at lunch so the kids who don't really have someone to hang out with, they can hang out in here and we watch movies. If a kid is having a rough day, I make tea if they're sick. So all that stuff, I can do all that. But I'm only here from 7:30 to like 4. After that, I can't help them.
Well,
Praying is how I help them.
yeah, I think too many teachers, you don't recognize by example or what you may say to them, or that taking that hello in the hall, or that even that small gesture you might make to one of your students. I don't think you appreciate what a dramatic effect it can have on them today. It may help them in another way, and that's where it's important that teachers. I don't necessarily have to be friend, but they have to be connected with their students.
Absolutely. We talk about that. I mean, there's training where the education cannot happen until you make those connections. You can't ask a student to trust you and take a risk because growth and smarts in the brain happen with risks, but they're not going to want to take that risk if they don't trust you. So they have to be able to trust to take that risk. And the more risks you take, the more you fail, the more you bring yourself back up and try again, the stronger you become and the smarter you become. So your kids need to be able to do that with you, and they need to be able to do that safely without feeling like they're stupid or dumb or being called dumb or idiots or whatever, which I can't believe that there are teachers out there who still do that, like seriously. I mean, I might joke with them, but
Right. Right.
they joke. I give as good as I get, and I get as good as I give.
Well, it's the only thing I can really correlate in my lifetime. I've done a lot of business coaching of people, but when I was a hitting instructor at a pretty high level, I quickly realized that it was not about what I knew as much as it was about my ability to communicate. And
Mm.
in teaching a real a batter how to hit a real curveball, when I had five techniques, I was okay. When I say five techniques, in communication techniques. But I didn't become what I considered a real hitting instructor until I could communicate to them 20 different ways.
Exactly.
So I could make that connection.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, you go ahead.
no, and the thing I was famous for was, Laura, when I told you something, I would say parrot it back to me.
Hmm. What
And
did I just say?
yeah, because my impression of teenagers is sometimes they have the attention spans of gnats, but that's
They're
probably
really good about doing this.
yeah.
And then you're like, what did I? Okay, so tell me what I said. What?
Yeah.
Me?
Yeah, yeah. They learn at a young age to shake their head in acknowledgement, like they're listening to us.
Mhm. I'm like, you're not even listening.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, as an educator, you need to be able to explain something multiple times in a different way every time because they're not going to get it this way or that way. You have to find ways that they're going to understand and that you can connect with them. So, and there's so many techniques that I am still learning. Like the latest one I just learned about a year ago was, instead of saying, "Are there any questions?" you say, "What questions do you have for me?" Oddly enough, that works. And then you get hands. Oh, okay. I
You
don't know
know,
what it is, but that works.
I was, we all had these mathematic instructors, but I had one in third grade that let's just say he was a little bit touched, but what he forced us to do was come up to the board and teach the class.
Yes.
And sometimes that's how we learn best because
That
after I was a hitting instructor, it forced me to become a better hitter.
Well, and they say it's like once you teach something, you retain it 90%. So a lot of times, part of my lesson plan is I will teach something and then I'll say, okay, now teach it to someone else. Like teach it to your classmate so that you know you're understanding it. And then if they get stuck, that's when they raise their hand and I come around and help. So that's a great technique to
Uh,
help kids learn.
what subjects do you teach, Laura?
I teach English.
And that seems daunting to me. I mean, to have a teacher, an English teacher, and English was sadly my third language when it came to comprehension and writing when I was in school. But to have one that is what I consider acclaimed as you, is that a benefit or is that a, how do you help me become a better writer? Or is that not a fair question?
Well, I think that it depends on what you mean by better. Because my goal for all of my students is to be able to write in a clear, succinct way that's organized, that gets what they're trying to say across, and that they know how to use outside sources to support themselves. Because regardless of what it is they're going to do, whether they're fighting with someone on Facebook, because oh my, I love using that as an example, or they're trying to persuade somebody or their boss, if they know how to effectively communicate, that they'll, I don't know, they're I lost my train of thought. They're going to be great. But
Uh,
so like I said, it depends on what you mean by better. Because, they say those right brain kids, man, they're the ones like they're English, the humanities, history, and then the left brains are the math, the science. And so I have a lot of right brain kids that are just
Gifted.
talented.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're talented in English. They have a natural knack for it. It's those left brain kids that I have to find a way to show them what it means. And by when I do that is I teach writing as a formula. And then if they can just get that formula down, and even if it's not creative or, amazing or whatever, but if they get their ideas across, then I feel like I've done my job.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up, and I was certainly mathematics and science based, but I was forced to write, and I do a lot of writing, but my writing is all patterned that I've learned. Science or sentence formats are very similar, names are interchanged, and it works for me. And some people will read it and go, "Oh, you're a remarkable writer." No, it's not. No, I'm not, because it's not natural to me. You couldn't, handing me a writing assignment would be very, very difficult. And then, most of the writing that I do is humorous.
Hmm.
So I think that was a coping skill. If I could get the teacher laughing, it just helped me a little bit more. But it's functional. But what those English teachers, and now I recognize it, what those English teachers taught me was communication.
Yes.
Because if I don't have to write it down, I can communicate with the best of them. You may not want to hear what I have to say, but I can communicate. Um,
I try
go,
to teach my students. I try to teach them that. And so when they're struggling with writing, I do writing conferences with my students. And so they come in and we don't do anything. And I go, let's just talk about the topic. Tell me what you're thinking. Tell me your thoughts. Where did you see that in the text? And then we can sit down and look at actually writing.
how,
Because a lot of times they get that blank piece of paper, well, computer screen in front of them, and they go blank. They freak out. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to write. They believe they can't, or they've been told they can't. So they just set up a time with me, and we sit down and and I say, okay, so this is the writing prompt. What do you think it's asking? What do you think it's saying? What are your thoughts on it?
What a gift you give them. I mean, because that is important. If they go into the garbage refuse business, which I think is one of the most critical, important jobs in society, they need to
Oh
be able
yeah.
to they need to be able to communicate.
Hmm. Absolutely.
So this has been enlightening. So the teaching atmosphere in rural Washington and Odessa, teachers are close, students are close.
Yes, I teach. I always say I teach in the best school in Washington State. I love my students and I love my parents because the key to having successful kids is to have involved parents. Because I can't do anything to them here, really. I mean, I can give you an F, but if that F doesn't mean anything at home,
Right.
then they're not going to do anything. But boy, you get a kid that gets a zero because they didn't turn something in, and that parent is on that kid. So, and they're involved. They communicate with me, and I communicate with them. I don't have a problem if I have very few misbehaviors, and I think it's because they know I will call their parent in the middle of class and tell them, "Hey, so and so's messing up doing this," and they're gonna have to like talk to the parent right there and then.
Oh my
So,
gosh, you've given me a
oh,
nightmare if I go back in
I've done
school.
it. I've done it, and then I'm like, oh, no, I've only done it a couple times. So I don't know what to do anymore. I just threaten it, and the parent goes, oh yeah, oh you call me anytime you need me. I'll talk to them.
My mom
So
would have said, "I'll be right there."
say 85% of our parents are like that, are really involved and supportive. And I think, unfortunately, in bigger school systems, parents are not as involved as they need to be. And it's a partnership,
Oh,
really,
absolutely.
between the parents and teachers. You know, we want kids to succeed and we want you involved. And we don't dislike your kids. I mean, I remember the weirdest thing a parent ever said to me was, well, you're just not, you're failing him because he has a bad grade or you don't like him. He's failing me because you don't like him. And I said, first of all, he's failing himself. I'm not failing him. Second of all, I can't do that. You
Right.
know, I can't just give kids grades based on whether I like them or not. So, because believe me, it looked a lot different. Just
Well, no, no, that happens in
I can tell.
college. That happens in
Oh,
college because you go
yeah,
negotiate your grades.
yeah. But I mean, and I could probably think in my 18 years of teaching, I can think on one hand students that I really struggled with, like to that I genuinely didn't like because they were
Well,
just
yeah,
mean.
yeah, but
Maybe
that
I
was I would guess that was your perception and how they interacted with others as opposed to how it affected you.
sometimes they made me cry. I had one kid who I was pregnant. He was 8 months pregnant. He made me cry. Who does
I don't know.
that? And I still remember that kid's name.
That's your husband's job.
Right? That's his job. But yeah, I'm not gonna put those 5 kids on blast. You're
No,
welcome.
no, 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 no.
Well, they're all adults now. They're in their 30s now.
Well, it's like, I've spoken to teachers that have recently retired that, were teaching 3 years ago. And that just the evolution of the game, how much time interacting with
Oh my gosh.
parents via email and parents having access to the grade book at any time they wanted, that would
Mhm.
have been another nightmare for me.
I'll see, and I love it.
Well, yeah, well,
I've got my own kids in school. I have a senior and a sophomore, and I'm just like click, 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 and then there's a snapshot, and it's send it on a text. You better get this turned in. Don't you make me get a hold of your teacher.
again. Okay, Laura, I really appreciate you spending some time with us and you've given us some enlightening perspective. And all the teachers that we've talked to, are looking for that parental involvement. And
Hmm.
it's a team. I mean, it's a team. You need the kids to be part of that team, and you need the parents to try and support what you do. When I went to,
We need parents here. We need you in our classroom, even whether it's physically, metaphorically, and in a positive way. You know, like,
yeah,
hey, how what is my kid doing? How can I support you? Because your kid's going to tell them stuff that like you don't want to know what they say about you, and I take that with a grain of salt. So
exactly.
but we really do need parents in our school. We need parents in the classroom. We need parents talking to their, I do it all the time. I never believe my kids first. I always believe the, the teacher first, because why are they going to lie?
Well, yeah, there's no benefit in it.
No, that community is so important. I can tell you from experience, the second a parent gets on board, that grade comes up, the learning comes up, the involvement comes up, the attitude changes. And that's what we all want for our kids, is just for them to succeed.
No, absolutely. When little Justin went to school, and little Justin, he'd just soon be a screw off kid as opposed to go to school. And he came home in second grade and he said, Mom, I don't want to go to school anymore. And I had developed a very intellectual argument of why I didn't need to go to school. And my mom said, Well, let me stop you right there. I go to work during the day. That's my job. You go to school. That's your job. And we have high expectations of how you're going to do in school. And that was the
Yeah.
end of that conversation. I never had that thought again. I went to do my job.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But when you tell kids, high school kids, that school's their job, they're like, well, I'm not getting paid.
Well,
Yes, you are. Get your grades.
well, tell them to quit listening to the PE coach. But
Funny story, real quick. Our PE teacher has actually taught English before. He has an English major.
wow, that's cool. That's
Mhm.
cool, as he
I know.
should.
I love to. We share stuff.
And what I would beg of a parent is, when the kids come home and they pull out their calculus book, don't don't make the statement that you don't understand it. Don't make the statement that they'll never need it. See, that's where critical thinking is developed. Just like English. English is it's a set of rules, and it
Yep.
develops critical thinking. So don't discourage them. Don't say that you took basic math when you went to high school. Try and learn. Try and learn from your child, if nothing else. Try and get up to speed. Watch some YouTube videos on calculus so you can be more supportive as a parent.
Yeah, and it's just those steps that they take in math. There's all sorts of reading you have to do, and I'm not talking just about those story problems. I'm talking like reading directions and following them correctly. That in and of itself is a gift that kids are choosing to take or not.
Well,
So,
and my calculus arguments with my teacher is you're being subjective, and I don't agree with subjective grading. And I'm sure English teachers deal with it all the same, but I think it's important. I think it's important that the students find a comfort in their education process, and it will benefit them. And, in the real world, the students should have to be paying for their education in high school and grade school, which they do because their parents pay taxes to make this
mhm.
happen.
Yep,
So
yep.
Laura, bless you for this. Bless you for this career path, and I think you're a remarkable teacher. I think if I had the opportunity to be in your class, it would have been a love hate relationship. But I think I would have learned so much from you.
I
I
would have
do.
liked you. I like the naughty kids. They make me
Okay.
laugh.
Well, naughty. I was okay. Maybe I wasn't prim and proper. But thank you. I mean, teacher appreciation. We should all take some ownership of it, and wish teachers the best every opportunity. So that being said, this has been Justin Case and Laura Caler talking teacher appreciation. Thanks for joining us. Remember, additional information and links are provided in this video's read more. Today's the day to subscribe to this channel, and please support teachers and instructors everywhere.